All right, here we go. Welcome to episode 2 of whatever the fuck this is. Um, this is effectively the evening after the time that I recorded the last video, and I realized that I really didn't look into the camera, and that for a very long time. So I kind of had an idea for a follow up video, and because we always keep putting things off if we don't do them immediately, it's less than 48 hours after the last recording, so I'm recording this now. I'll put this up on um, whatever it is, the 14th, so 1 week after the last video. So happy Sunday. Um, yeah, and the whole point of this is me trying to look into the camera in a non creepy way. But topic, I don't know. I had the idea for a like myth busting, like busting badge painting, army painting myths, and yeah, I don't know. I have some notes written down that are kind of there, um, and I'll try to go through them and talk for less than, let's say, 45 hours. So yeah, let's see. First kind of topic. Badge painting is boring. Hell yeah, it is. That's the whole point. Um, yeah, if you, I don't know, if you feel like you've never gotten the hang of badge painting and because it's boring, it fucking is. If you badge paint, I don't know, 10 models, 20 models, 105 models, um, yeah, at some point you're gonna get, you know, stupid in the head and you're gonna make mistakes, and that's fine. Um, and you're gonna miss whatever details, like you'll miss putting one specific color on, a gun or something like that. And when you go through it again, like there, it's going to be a mess. But that's all right. The question is that can you get yourself to a place where you enjoy the tedium of it? Because it is tedium, right? It's not fun in the strictest sense. But I think that's something that folks can do maybe better. Some folks can do better than others, is kind of switch their brains off. Or, like, for, I don't know, someone like me, it's kind of a point of like, I like doing that. Like, I like getting into a Zen mode, into, not dealing with reality as much or like processing reality. And that's like, for me, that's part of the joy. Like, yes, you kind of lose track of, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, and you start feeling it in your joints if you're of a certain age. But that's fine. Like, that's how you process stress at work, stress in your personal life, whatever. Like, that's one of the reasons why I'm not really into, I don't know, tutorials, etc. Because I just want to get. I don't want to think while painting, right? Because, like, if you're doing the same step 105 times or even 10 times, 30 times, your brain switches off after a certain moment, right? That also then leads to you missing things, right? Missing the bolter case, like you forgot to do that blue, and then you wanted to take a picture of it and realize, hey, I missed the whole bolter case and haven't painted that blue. That happens when you switch off your brain. But otherwise, you know if you if you were incredibly focused on getting every little detail right in 110 minutes, you don't have that kind of concentration. Like, you only get to that if you get into kind of a flow state, if you have a good, I don't know, YouTube video on to watch or effectively listen to, if you get to a point. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've always felt like talking to people is too much of a distraction to me. So, like, I like hanging out with friends on like Skype, Zoom, whatever. But I'm not as productive as when I'm just like by myself painting, and then listening to whatever Critical Role, etc. But yeah, it's terribly, terribly boring. That's again, it's part of the journey, um, and you'll get used to it. I said like I don't think that a batch of 105 models is necessarily recommendable, but it gets shit done, right? And if you like getting shit done, then batch painting is for you. Because however long it takes you to, do 10 steps on 105 models, it does get those 105 models done so much more quickly than if you paint them one by one. Because, like, just the time of switching brushes 105 times or opening paint 105 times, that stuff adds up, right? And even if you have them perfectly set up already, it just adds up, and you're always kind of reconfiguring. Okay, this is this one now, and I have to, I have these things to take care of. That's all fine. Um, but then coming up to the second point of three, um, but there'll be bonus content. Yay! Good grief, that sounds pretentious as all heck. Second point, batch painting is faster. Yeah, it is. In the same way that it's boring, it also is faster, right? Because at some point, like muscle memory sets in. Even if you paint, five different poses or five different poses from, three different sets of minis, if you know that all the armor bits are painted metallic, in that whatever Boltran metal, then you know how to paint Boltran metal after repeating that for whatever 30, 40 times. And you know where it goes, and you'll learn, like over time, you'll get to know the miniatures, quite intimately. Um, and you'll be all right. Like, it's so much faster. Um, and honestly, like when I'm painting single miniatures, I paint them basically the same way that I, with just like a couple of additional steps. Then I paint my batches, and that means that I don't know individual miniatures. Like I have a hard time painting individual miniatures for more than 2 evenings, because honestly, like you can get them to look fine plenty of times in a short amount of time. Yeah, so yes, it's faster. Um, Also, again, just because it reduces thinking time. Of course, if you are not necessarily not doing things like a test mini, then yeah, it makes sense to paint the first mini like 100% through, because then you can adjust. And I don't know, like I didn't paint anything since the last recording, but I have next to me here my current batch. I have one batch of 10 Space Marines that are already done, and then one batch of 10 Space Marines that are, you know, in the process of being done, as in they have to have their first step done. And this was the first batch in that color scheme, pre Magnus Thousand Suns. And yeah, I'll shift around some like one color. I'll make the metallic color a bit darker, so that the contrast is a bit bigger. Because it was pointed out to me that the overall contrast degree in that miniature is not as high as it could be. Oh, this is kind of bonus myth to be busted. You don't have to paint all of the minis in the same recipe. You just don't. I painted my Warhound's army over the course of 3 years. It was like 5,000 points. And by the end of it, I had found like a dark blue speed paint. It's Beowulf blue from Speed Paints 2.0, just because it's like there. And that kind of solved the whole issue of like going through dark blue spray paint and then, dry brushing with ever finer or ever bigger dry brushes so it catches ever less stuff, and then the whole marine juice over it. I just like skipped all of that stuff from like to gray undercoat, dark blue speed paint, dry brush, marine juice. I think, or not even. There are minis. I think there's at least one unit where I didn't even put marine juice on, because it was already pre-shaded because it's a speed paint. So and yes, it's technically completely different color than the stuff that I've used for 95% of that army. No one cares. First of all, no one cares. Second of all, this is an army scale game. You're not going to really realize it to the point of, making a fuss about it, because a warhound looks like a warhound. There's going to be blue, there's going to be red, there's going to be white, there's going to be bronze, and maybe you have some silverish metallic for, stuff. That's a warhound. Best Space Marine color scheme in the history of ever. I love this one currently, but there's just no competition. But feel free to, discuss in the comments. Anyway, like, also on the point of like, you can change the recipe, and like you don't need to write down the fucking recipe. You know what you the end result that you want to achieve, right? So historically, like if you go through, most recent history, let's say like World War I, World War II, like the way cloths were dyed changed in the middle of wars, right? Supply chains changed, supply routes changed, suppliers changed for the armies that were in battle. So the coloring changed slightly. And if you listen to somebody like Sonic Sledgehammer, of Sonic Tonic slash Marine Juice fame, when he's talking about like historical miniatures, like he goes into like, yes, you can do the perfectly accurate thing, but then you can also paint it differently, because in certain years specific armies change their the dye of their for their jackets, so they had a slightly different blue gray. So for painting, means like whichever fucking blue gray you have, it's gonna be fine. It doesn't need to look identical, because that's just not realistic in sense of in our real world. If you have five units from the same army that they'll use different dishwashers, so they'll is dishwashers, different washing machines and dishwashers. So that detergent may change, so they look slightly different. It doesn't need to look the same to look coherent. You can change the recipe. You can change whatever the hell you want. I have, yeah, at the from the finished units in here. Like, I've made some mistakes. Like, they have one kind of orange, one orange shoulder pad with a blue symbol on it, and one blue shoulder pad with an orange symbol on it. Those Space Marines, right? There may or may not be one guy in there where I just painted the left shoulder pad completely orange and then painted the blue over it. right? So then I painted again blue. I did paint the background blue so that the arrow is orange and the rest is not. That looked black. I went over it with the dark blue. It's still darker than the rest of the, all the other right shoulder pads of those guys. If you, like, whenever I'll play that army, nobody will realize that that one shoulder pad is like, you know, 10 degrees darker than the rest of the army because it's one mini of 100, something like that, 80. So, yeah, um, you're gonna make mistakes. They technically might be visible, especially at an army scale. No one gives a fuck. Um, just don't, right? Um, yeah. So yeah, you don't. It doesn't need to look like it's going to look consistent because if you're painting the basic colors, the basic same colors, warhounds, blue, white, red, bronze, bonus colors. If they are in the right kind of ratios to each other, it's gonna look consistent, and that's the end of it. You can switch whatever paint suppliers in the middle of the damn thing. A dark blue is a dark blue is a dark blue, right? I mean, it may sound differently, be called differently and all that, but a dark blue is a dark blue, a bright red is bright red. You know, a bronze color is a bronze color. If you're colorblind, get a friend to help or use Army Painter paints because they have the nice descriptions. And then you're also supplying, a good company with some money. So nobody loses, I guess. But yeah, so it doesn't, you don't need to do the same few steps slavishly. And you can, like, if you have an ATT unit, you can add a few steps to make them a bit extra pretty. If you are, if they are the grunts, I don't know, your levy squads in the militia, you can you can probably do a few less layers on them, or a few more if you feel ironic and want to paint 50 special characters that die to a stiff breeze, you know, or just by looking at them weirdly. Um, yeah. So like yes, it's faster, but also like this idea of it needs to be consistent 100% of the time, all the time. No, it doesn't. You can have fun. Like you can switch things up. That will make things a bit more slowly. But also like if you don't have the exact right paint or the exact paint that you needed that you used last time, it's not the end of the world. It might actually make the army look more interesting, right? You can have the veterans use more kind of faded, not necessarily pastel, but desaturated colors if you feel like. Like you can play around with that and you can have fun with, figuring out like, okay, I'm painting the same scheme, but like a, you know, parallel universe version of that, or like the kind of desaturated. I'm using desaturated red, desaturated blues, desaturated greens, gray greens, what have you. Right, you can play around with that. So you can paint like one batch of whatever 20 to 50 in this way because they're the dregs of the world. But then you have the elite people, another 20 to 50, slightly slight alteration. Like they all look as part of the same army, especially pacing does wonders for that. Um, and you'll still get to, not paint exactly the same stuff and learn new colors while doing so, or be a bit more creative in your freehands. Like I've painted, like the warhounds all had freehands on their left shoulders, left yeah left shoulders, left shoulder pads. Like every single fucking one of them had at least one free hand on one of their shoulders, most of them on their left shoulders. You, I mean, at that scale, you are kind of in a time crunch, and you know, doing the same whatever arrow or symbol that you come up with for your tactical support squads or for your terminators, etc. Yeah, you're gonna be fast about it, but that's also like kind of the reward at the end of painting everything else, like step by step by step by step. So you can find ways how you can make it more interesting for yourself, right? There's plenty of tools that you can use to make things, you know, faster. I guess. Like I have here, um, Goblin Hobbies, Goblin Hobbies stamps. I haven't really, learned how to do them quickly and consistently yet, but I will. And then I'll have fancy squad markings, till Kingdom Come. Um, yeah. So this is like I wrote down like three things, like three myths. Batch painting is boring. Batch painting is faster or slash gets you lets you get stuff done, and batch painting is only for the faint of heart. And followed by a few, think, hey, how can you make paint faster, painting patches faster? Yeah, I mean, we're already kind of in the okay. So what are we doing with not having fun? And I mean, there are a few things that you can do. You can do tricks like the stamps. You can do decals. If you've learned that, I haven't. That's why I bought the stamps. With the end result that they probably have the same kind of learning curve. Anyway, so you have that. You can, different armies are better for patch painting than others. I think things. I don't know. Like I once patch painted a two armies for bolt action as a Christmas present, and holy hell, like does camel go fast? Like especially it was like the Gentleman's War, like the kind of Africa Corps versus Eighth Army in Africa thing. Like so, two different versions of Desert Camel. Like holy hell, that's a quick thing to paint because it's basically beige and sandy colors and off whites. So like yeah, if you want to paint, actual camel, that's a quick thing to do because whichever basing you're doing, like pick similar colors, and as long as you're not really doing like proper modern stuff or like World War I was like like ships with geometrical shapes, you'll be all right. Um, so yeah, um, there are ways like you can paint like anything with the code is comparatively quickly to do. You can do yeah, one of the big 105 batch that I did, that was basically like just a bunch of like sandy and beige colors with a rattle can, and then lots of different washes. Like you can do wonders with washes just to get shades and stuff and make things look a lot more interesting and a lot better painted than they actually are. Um, and then yeah, you can go to town with different kinds of dry brushes if you have, and if you can stand it. Things like an airbrush are apparently do wonders for your productivity. I personally don't think it looks very nice. Like all the supernatural fades, that doesn't look like how I want things to look. But also, I'm one of the people that genuinely doesn't mind base coating and priming stuff by hand. I have, you know, big big brushes, and I cannot lie. I don't know. It's I don't mind it. Like it's part of the like I'm not doing it for the crispest like to catch every detail. I do it because it calms me down. And I'm not doing it to win any awards. I'm doing it because it calms me down. Because I enjoy calming down. Um yeah. So like you can do yeah, washes, inks, like probably also oil washes and stuff are fine. And like anything also like depending on the batch size of the batch, like if you have a really big batch, then by the time you've applied the you know last wash on the last model, the first model will be perfectly dry. Or if you use things like oil washes, etc., like you do those whatever 20, 30, 50, 105 models, and then you get to have fun, talk to your cats and dogs and kids and partners and grandparents, etc. And then a few hours later, you come back and do it all again. But like there can be also like a natural end point of like you need to stop painting now because like whatever you do right now would ruin it. Usually, in the middle of the ugly stage. I mean, also ugly stage, yeah, it takes a bit longer because if the ugly stage, it takes whatever 30, 50, 105 times as long because you know, getting to the next steps and getting out of it takes a bit longer. But also, like, then you've gone through the ugly stage 105 times, which means, yay, endorphins. It doesn't look like shit anymore. And that's also like usually the point when your motivation comes back. When you say, oh, it starts to look like what it's supposed to look like. That's very cool. Um, so, and that's when, the half of the way, whatever, two-thirds of the way is just grind and, trying to get into a flow state and, trying not to hurt yourself too much. And then it starts to look nice. And then, you get that second air. Um, Yeah, one of the things I don't know. I keep talking about like the big batches, but like you can also do like use the same kind of techniques to just paint like a small amount of minis, whatever, like five, six, seven, in a really rapid way. Right? I had it once that so we were doing Trench Crusade demos the next day or something, or like on a Saturday I would be going to the next biggest town and do a demo day on Trench Crusade with one of the local clubs. And at the beginning of the week, like I was still missing one of the factions, like the demon factions. I hadn't really found good proxies or like good models for, but I wanted to have all main factions there. So okay, I found a kit for like 20 euros. Um, Ordered it from the closest kind of hobby supplier. Received it on a Thursday, built it and kit bashed the minis to make them look like Trench Crusade minis on that Thursday evening. And on Friday, when I got home from work, like they were completely unpainted. And that was, 6, 7 models, and they were supposed to be the big bad guys. And then I did some dry brushing, and after that, I was like, just like put on 2 more colors, and that was it. And this is something where you again like you learn to play around with different things, and something that I always encourage people to do. Not always encourage people to do because nobody asks me, and nor should they, frankly. But like something that I personally quite enjoy and have learned a lot from is like using differently colored underpainting. So like slap chop, but not with like grayscale, but combining different colors. Like you can combine a dark blue with a red and a bright yellow. Like you'll still have, different kind of color brightnesses, but not necessarily the same color tones. And then if you go over that with your, one and done paints, like your speed paints, your contrast paints, your express paints, or however, your brand of choice is called, you can do that. Like you can have fun with that. And that can really also like speed up things because then you get interesting shades, etc., color variations without that much work because like slap job takes pretty much the same time. The underpainting and dry brushing, and that takes the same amount of time no matter which color combination. But then if you don't just go for kind of gray scale, blue scale, red scale, I don't know, purple scale for that, but like you know even something like a dark red in the shadows, I don't know, a mid blue and a bright pink. I haven't done that specific combination, but like you'll have still the same effect of the that one coat paint being brightest, at the kind of um, outermost edges, but at the same time it'll shift color temperature like as it goes flows into the crevices, and that alone can make a model look very very interesting with not at all not much of any effort, right? Like in the example of this Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent warband that I painted in an evening, like I wanted to do like on the a underpainting of blue, green, yellow, so all coldish, right? Um, but then I saw what that had done. Like I saw like the dark blue, then like the dark blue was like looked like dark blue, then a bright green that actually covered. That was already a cool effect. All right, I'm starting to like this. And then a yellow, which is effectively just like two steps on the same whatever scale, like it was in the same temperature, etc., as that green. And then I think I did a this kind of ice yellow color, just for the outermost edges. And honestly, like that looked good to the point that I didn't even bother with a kind of skin color because that was then the skin color. And then I only used speed paints for like the metallics, whatever, the wood on the weapons and the kind of orange for the flames. I mean, yeah, they look, you know, effectively tabletop ready, but they don't look terrible. And I think that took me 2, 3 hours to paint like that whole warband, including the underpainting. Because as soon as the underpainting was done, like it was very quickly. I think the kit bashing of largely pre-supplied models or like pre-made models may have taken longer. So like there's tips and tricks that you can use, and once you kind of used to using them, what a sentence. Once you're used to them, then you can apply them also at smaller batch scales of painting, or like even single miniatures, because it just makes you a faster painter. And even as you're painting, larger batches, and you feel like, okay, either this isn't quick enough, or I feel like this one step doesn't do anything, you can always skip it, see how that batch looks, and then especially at an army scale, you are very rarely going to do the whole army in one go. So you can play around with that, and more often than not, you can skip whole steps without anyone really noticing. Like, of course, like if you're doing a step job, people are going like it's going to look different if you have like, black dark gray, slightly lighter dark gray, mid gray, slightly lighter mid gray, bright gray, off white 1, off white 2, off white 3, white, right? It's going to look different if you do that, or if you go black dry brushed with white. But it may not look that different from black mid gray white or black dark gray mid gray white. Right? So like there are ways to skip around, and I know common sense says I don't know. Feel like it's become part of political culture wars, but like use your brain, right? If it looks shit, don't repeat it. Um, if it doesn't look shit, maybe repeat it. You know, looks like shit. Yeah. All right. I think that's yeah. So big question: why do batch paintings? I don't know. Like I like getting stuff done. I get the dopamine rush from being done with things, and having an army on the table and then kind of seeing it become you know done over the over a predictable like over the course of X amount of time. That's a nice little progress bar. But yeah, also like you're gonna get sick and tired of a project. I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere on the social media that like one of the best things to do is have like two projects at the same time that you can switch between because you're gonna get sick of them. But having more than two means that you're much more likely to get um, to get distracted and then not return back because if you're just like kind of bouncing between that one the big project and then like okay I'm going to do a small project and then that's done and then I come back to the big one and then I do another small one and then I go back to that one is a lot more kind of effective I guess and like easier to handle mentally than like okay I have three armies that I'm painting at the same time and then I'll paint one unit of this, one unit of that, and then I'll go to the third one because I feel bad about not having painted that, and then I get tired of that, and then I'm not sure which one of the other two to switch to. So yeah, um, that's like I, I think it was Vince Ventrella. I don't know who said it, but it makes sense to me. Um, yeah, and any case, so that's yeah. I don't know. It's a fun thing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, I think like I do think that there are people that are more kind of drawn to or prone to do like larger batches because like there's this kind of flow state, etc. But I honestly don't know how what the ratio is, but I'm quite certain that you can learn it and that you can learn to enjoy it more. But it's also a question of like, why are you painting, right? If you want to have the highest quality, then don't fucking batch paint because painting, that's going to be torture, right? Um, at the same time, if you get dopamine from like having, one little toy soldier ready and done, then I saying, okay, I want, nine more of those guys, and I want to have them by the end of you know, the day after tomorrow, then you're probably not going to paint them one by one. Um, I mean, if you can, congratulations. but it does make yeah, makes you hit that progress bar a bit quicker if like fighting against the gray pile of shame, etc. If that's your goal, then there might not be many ways around batch painting. Right? I managed to actually paint my pile of shame once 3 years ago. And I think that was like not counting one set of minis that I wanted to, that I started painting with my little sister. And I'm not sure, like, if those will ever get painted, but I want them to be there, uh, when she visits again. And that's fine. Um, and she might probably even be happier if I just painted, both teams of that, Blood Bowl set. But I don't know. Um, so yeah, I managed to do that exactly once. Um, yeah, and that's like it's a fine goal, and I mean, usually desperately and brutally torpedoed by if you are an army painter, you're also an army buyer and collector, and that means not just fun discussions with your bank or your better half, but also means that yeah you'll have big boxes of stuff lying around that needs painting. So then you also kind of get encouraged to that, yeah, I bought this stuff. I don't know if I'll ever play with it, but I at least honor like that purchase and then that intent, that idea behind it enough so that I actually deal with it. That's also for me kind of a kind of more commercial thing. Whereas like when I'm buying something, then either I should do something with it, which is paint, play, whatever, or you know give it to somebody who has more fun with it. So I hadn't like last year, over the course of like half a year, I got like one of my dream armies, like got them, cobbled them together from eBay, etc. Like this Warhammer Fantasy Chaos Warriors army from like all of the kind of 90s sculpts, like the Chaos Warriors, like the big weird ones. And I got like a decently sized army. Like I got a Chaos Dragon, I got like the old school metal cavalry, Chaos Warrior cavalry. I got some Marauders and all of that stuff. And when I had that army and started to paint it, I realized how much I hated fucking painting that army. I had a fun idea, like I had a fun idea for the fluff of them, but like not more than their Mediterranean Chaos Warriors, so they'll have very brightly colored bases. I painted one unit of Chaos Warriors like that, and then I realized like I like the idea of this army so much more than I will ever like painting it. So I sold it at quite a substantial loss because I just wanted to get rid of it. Um, so yeah, so I sometimes there's a moment where you realize like yeah, I like the idea of something more than the actual implementation of that idea, and that's fine. We're allowed to make mistakes. We're allowed to not follow through on things, but yeah, that for some people, painting to the best this miniature that they are painting right now and that they've spent whatever 20, 30, 100 years on, to like honor that purchase by painting it to the best of their ability. And like my approach always has been so, okay, but if I spend like if I do that to one model, what about the other 150 that are still on their sprues? So for me, it's more like honoring the pile and honoring the, well, not capitalist waste, but like honoring the impulse purchases by addressing them and at least making them look decent enough from 3 feet across the table. And it's also, yeah, it's a good way to learn techniques. Like if you've done 100 or so freehands on the left shoulder head of a shoulder head, that's more chaosy. On the left shoulder pad of case of Space Marines, then you're going to not be as scared anymore of freehands. If I mean, even if the freehands are shit, like you've gotten, first of all, you will have gotten better and more efficient at them just by virtue of having done it 100 times. But also, like you're gonna lose the respect of, the fact of, oh my god, I have to do a freehand. So, all right, I've done 1,000,001 freehands. It might not look brilliantly, but I know how I can paint, whatever, a little fist symbol because I've done it a bunch of times. I know how to write most Roman numerals on, a shin guard because I've done it a bunch. Um, yeah, and you also know like how to kind of set your highlights if you want. And I mean, that's one thing. Like la- layer painting is looks great, but has limitations in its applicability for batch painting because it does slow you down. So like I usually do like one, not more than one or two layers. Usually one, you know, the the good old base layer wash, base layer highlight, or base layer wash highlight, because also like the second base layer like you can usually skip without anyone noticing too much. Um, yeah. So yeah, now I've distracted myself, and I think I'm already talking for an hour or so. Anyway, I badge painting can be fun. Yes, it's terribly boring. Yes, the ugly stage takes quite a while depending on the size of the badge, but you get stuff done. You genuinely do. It's not rocket science. You can still play around with miniatures. You can still, paint your sergeants a bit more special, or the centerpiece models. You can do that. Like you can have fun. Like you can reward yourself for the tedium. Um, so that's fine, right? Like just because you're batch painting doesn't mean that that's the only thing you'll be doing until, well, Kingdom Come. But it means that a lot more of the, gray plastic that, once upon a time was on a sprue, whether that sprue was made in Nottingham or, I don't know, Solingen, um, doesn't matter. But yeah, now I'll stop this thing, and I've looked into the camera plenty of times. I'm glad with that. But I've also said, way too much. So, probably for the next video, I'll try to be a more coherent talker. And it's a very strange thing to look into the camera and right under the camera is your own picture. So you're basically having very intimate, uh, you know, conversations with yourself. But yeah, at least I've looked near the camera this time rather than wandering, back and forth and back and forth. Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised by, the views that last one got, which was like more than five. Um, so yeah, have a good one. Happy Sunday. If you have comments, honestly, I have like two subscribers right now. Like, I'm not gonna ask you to fucking subscribe because I don't know when I'll do the next one. Probably, at the end of tomorrow. Because I don't know. Life's like that right now. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for making it this fucking far. Um, I do enjoy recording way too much. I don't know. It's just fun. Although I have nothing to teach yet. Um, Not just because I'm talking means that I should be, but I know maybe this gives you something, if only background noise while batch painting or preparing for your fifth golden demon entry for the same competition. Whoever you are, thanks for watching, and bye.